पृथिवी शान्तिरन्तरिक्षगं शान्तिर्द्यौ शान्तिर्दिशः शान्तिरवान्तर दिशा शान्तिरग्निः शान्तिर्वायुः शान्तिरादित्यः शान्तिः चन्द्रमा शान्तिर्नक्षत्राणि शान्तिराप शान्तिरोषधयः शान्तिर् गौ शान्तिरजा शान्तिरश्वः शान्तिः पुरुषः शान्तिर्ब्रह्म शान्तिर्ब्राह्मणः शान्तिः शान्तिरेव शान्तिः शान्तिर्मे अस्तु शान्तिः. May there be peace on earth and in the sky. May there be peace in the water and in all directions. May there be peace in the plants, in the trees and in animals. May there be peace in the hearts of all beings. May there be peace in everyone and in everything. Sarvetra sukhinas santu, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet, sarvastaratu durgani, sarvo bhadrani pashyatu, sarvas sadbuddhimapnotu, sarvas sarvatra nandatu. May all be happy and healthy. May all see what is good, and may no one experience misery. May all overcome their obstacles and acquire good tendencies. May people everywhere find joy and fulfillment. Let us now spend some time touching the center of peace and joy in our hearts. A good way to begin the practice is to withdraw the scattered energies of the mind and bring them to rest on one point. That point can be our own breathing. Let us therefore practice breathing with awareness. As we breathe in, let us visualize that our body and mind are being filled with love, strength, and compassion. And as we breathe out, let us release all the stress, anxiety, and exhaustion in the body and mind. Let us practice this way for a while. Let us now turn our attention to the region of our heart. Although God is present everywhere and in everyone, the divine presence can be felt most clearly in our hearts. We can meditate in any way we have been taught. To remain focused, we can take the help of a short mental prayer or a mantra or a divine name. Let us now spend some time dwelling on the presence of God in our hearts. Om Asatoma Satkamayam Tamasoma Jyotirgamayam Mrityorma Amritam Gamayam Aviravirmayeti Rudrayatte Dakshinam Mukham Tenamam Pahi Nityam. May the Divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the Divine Consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. We begin today on verse number 16. So let's chant together. That's on page 273 of your books. Aham kraturaham yajnaha Swadhaham aushadham Mantro ahamevajam Aham agniraham hutam. I am Kratu, I am Yajna, I am the oblations to the mains, I am the product of the annuals, I am the mantra, I alone am the clarified butter, I am the sacrificial fire and the offerings in the fire. In the earlier verse, we read that Krishna said that one of the ways of worshipping the divine is through what he called Jnana Yajna, knowledge sacrifice. And Jnana Yajna, as the commentators explain it, means seeing the presence of God everywhere. So there are different ways of adoring and worshipping the divine. There is clearly the ritualistic worship, the worship that we do with flowers, sandal paste, food offering and so on. There is a worship that can be done through selfless service. So every service that we offer without considering our own self-interest itself can be a worship. And that is doing work in the spirit of Karma Yoga. And Jnana Yajna, that is a worship by changing the way we perceive ourselves and the world around us, is by seeing the presence of God in everyone and in everything. One thing has to be always kept in mind, and that is the subject and the object are dynamically related. That when you change the subject, the object changes. And one of the things that we can learn, but most people don't, is that if we focus only on objective change, that will occur, but that will never be permanent. And we see that in every generation, all through history, great reformers have come to improve the lot of society, to help poor people, to feed the hungry, and to make the world a better place. Considering that for centuries people have worked to make this world a better place, and we have been around for now billions of years, this should have become a pretty good place by this time. But considering that even in our own lifetime, we see that life seems to be improving in some respects. In some respects, it seems to be getting worse. And in some respects, it remains pretty much same. And if you go to the core of human existence, you see that while we have a lot different gadgets to play with, in some sense, therefore, at the physical level, we might say that life has become better, more comfortable in many ways. We don't have to, we can sleep peacefully without worrying that some dinosaur or T-Rex will come. That danger is not there, but other dangers are there, of course. There wasn't, I don't know, but there was a natural terrorism of the wild animals in ancient times. So we have now a human terrorism. So in some respect, that hasn't changed as well. But also, hatred, jealousy, selfishness, these have been around for millennia and have still not left the human heart. So in some ways, life hasn't changed at all. What we do see is that while the changes we make in the external world may be limited, the change we make within us will bring about a change in our perception of the world. If I feed a hungry person, definitely I made some change, but that person is going to be hungry again after 6 or 8 hours. So a change is there, but it's limited and temporary. On the other hand, if I change myself and learn to feel the presence of God in everyone, then life completely changes. Now, I will not be able to see God in everyone unless and until I am able to see God in my own heart. That's what I meant by saying the subject and object are dynamically related. Think about it this way. We are effortlessly able to see everyone as human beings. We don't need to look up a book, say, who are these people? Oh, they are human beings. We don't need to do that. Why is it that we are able to see everyone effortlessly as human beings? And the reason is, I'm able to see myself effortlessly as a human being. So since my self-identity as a human being is natural, my perception of others as human beings is natural also. On the other hand, we read in books, we have been told that especially if you have been reading Vedanta, we have been told God is present in the heart of all of us. But that's not very effortless. Every time there is a person in front, I don't say, oh, there is God in the heart of this person. So why is it that I'm not able to see that as effortlessly as the fact that this person in front of me is a human being? The reason I'm not able to see it, because I'm not able to see effortlessly that God is in my own heart. So if I can change the subject, the perceiver, if I can train myself to see the presence of God in my own heart, then it will become easier for me to feel the presence of God in the hearts of other people as well. If I can see myself as a child of God, it will become easy for us to see everyone as children of God. But if I don't see myself as a child of God, and simply keep on saying, God is our father, God is our mother, all are God's children, well, that's a good idea, that's a nice sentiment, but that won't be a part of our experience unless and until I see myself as a child of God. So that is the idea here. The Jnana Yajna means seeing the presence of God everywhere. And to do that, we must first see and recognize the presence of God in our own heart. And once we do that, it becomes so much easier, and that's what this verse points out, the one which we read just now. Now, in this verse, what is primarily mentioned are things which were very central in many ways, very important at the time in which the Gita was taught. And we know it's an old book. Well, according to, very difficult to put a date on it, but according to conservative estimates, it can go anywhere between 2,500 to 3,000 or 4,000 years old. So it's a pretty old book. So many of these things mentioned here are referring to things which were very much important then, somewhat important now, but many of these practices have kind of either receded into the background or have been replaced by something else in the name of modernity, or in the name of civilization, or in the time of in the name of that, well, life has changed, whatever you may call it. So I'm Kratu. Now Kratu referred to all the Vedic rituals of those days. I'm Yajna. Yajna are the rituals described in a second class of scriptures called Smriti. So all of the Vedanta text, or the texts in Hinduism, can be seen as divided into two main categories. One is called Shruti, which refers to only the Vedas. And literally translated, it means that which is heard. So Shruti, the Vedas don't have a human author. It was not written by any person. It was the higher revelations which were heard or intuited by these Vedic sages. Everything other than the Vedas, including the Gita, belong to the second class of texts called Smriti. And which Smriti literally translates, it means that which is remembered. So this class of texts, long before, these are so old texts, long before even writing came into being. So these were passed on orally from one generation to the next. So they were called Smritis, that which is remembered. So the Smriti rituals are called Yajna often, and the Vedic rituals are in this text called Kratu. The oblation to the mains. Mains means the spirits of the dead, the spirits of the ancestors. So there is a tradition in the Orthodox families that on the death anniversaries of the ancestors, of people in the family who have passed away, to have a worship, to make an offering. The offering is sometimes called the Shraddha, so on the death anniversary of family members. So that's the oblation to the mains. The product of the annuals. Now the annuals is Aushadam. It is either referred to medicinal herbs or also to food that is produced. I am the mantra alone in the clarified butter, all the things that are used in a ritual. I am the sacrificial fire and the offering in the fire. Now, what doesn't mean Krishna is only this, the divine is only in this. So a few of the samples are mentioned, that if I have to see the presence of God everywhere, then I must see presence of God in things which I have to deal with on a daily basis or on a periodic basis, and things which are real in my daily use. And these things were very real then, and perhaps today many people do use a mantra. They do, and if you do some kind of a worship, butter and these things are used. Some families continue to observe the death anniversaries and some rituals connected with it and so on. So the idea is to recognize the presence of God in all of these things. Some more examples are given in the next two verses as well. Verse 17. Pitahamasya jagato Mata dhata pitamaham Vedyam pavitramomkara Ruksama yajurevacha. I am the father of the world, the mother, the dispenser, the grandsire, that which is to be known, the purifier, the Om, and also the Vedas, Rik, Saman, and Yajus. Again, these are the many different ways in which God can be seen. God as the father, the mother, the dispenser. I'm sorry about this. The whole day was quite okay. I don't know, just at the time of the Gita, my throat is acting up. No, this is good. I've got hot water here. That's fine. So I'm the father of the world. We can see God as the father, the mother. Not only that, our own father or mother, or the fatherly or motherly figures that we meet with in life, we can see the presence of God in them as well. The dispenser here really means a karma phala data. So who gives us the karma phala, the fruits of action. So when we do something good, we are rewarded, we experience happiness. When we do something stupid, we suffer, experience pain. So who gives us that pain or happiness? Sukha or dukkha? And that sukha dukkha comes from God, because God is the conscious principle, everything else is material. And so you need a conscious principle for any activity to take place. So while karma itself is material, but the karma, it's a little bit like this. When we work, you have a job and you're paid for the work that you do. Now, and when you're paid, well, you're either paid with a check or you're just given cash. Now, the dollar bills themselves are material things. And now they just don't come flying about. There has to be some conscious person to either mail the check to you or to hand over the cash to you. So you need some conscious principle. Although you get only paid for what you work for, neither more nor less. In the same way, God gives us the fruits of our actions, not according to God's fancy. It's like, oh, I like you, so take some more joy for you. I hate you, take some more pain. God doesn't do that. So God gives us exactly how much we worked, good or bad. So God is the dispenser, but a dispenser without much, a dispenser who doesn't use one's own whims and fancies to reward or punish anyone. So when we think of God as God will punish you, that's a wrong idea. God never punishes anybody. And if you look at it from the perspective of karma, God doesn't reward anybody either. So neither rewards nor punishment are given by God. Whatever is the result of our own action, but God simply dispenses it. That's the meaning of dispenser. The grandsire, that which is to be known, the purifier, the rest is pretty obvious. Verse 18. Gatir bharta prabhu sakshi nivasas sharanam surat prabhavav pralayasthanam nidhanam bijamavyayam. I am the goal, the sustainer, the Lord, the witness, the abode, the refuge, the friend, the source, the destroyer, the support, the repository, and the eternal seed. The repository means unto whom everything returns, where everything gets deposited. So at the end of the creation cycle, everyone returns back to God. And the eternal seed. And again, when the new cycle begins, it's from God again that this whole universe comes out. So again, these are the many different ways in which God can be perceived. It's not necessary to see it in all of these ways. In general, all of this can be summarized as all of our relationships in life, all of our possessions, everything that we perceive is nothing but filled with God. And what these three verses have given are only a few samples, examples. So keep that in mind. So the more we are able to see God in everyone and everything, the world will change for us. Sometimes we see, you can ask a bunch of people, sometimes when things are just fine, you think, this world is so good, it's so wonderful, you feel. When things are really dark and you are in a very bad mood, then you say, everyone is bad, everyone is selfish, this world is terrible. Well, the world is what the world is. But the world changes its color for me depending on my mood. That's what, again, going back to what I said before, the subject and the object are related. If I'm in good mood, everyone appears very fine. If I'm in a bad mood, everyone appears very terrible. Sri Ramakrishna would say that this world is just the play of the Divine Mother. There's all the divine playing it. And for many of us who are not seeing that divine within, It's like, well, I don't see any divine play anywhere. And yet, Ramakrishna lived in the same world as you and I do. So how come he saw something different and we see something different? He saw something different because he had become different. His inner had changed, so the outer changed for him. And that's what this goal of spiritual life is. We can spend our entire life trying to do good to the world, and it's good to do that. But recognize that no matter how much good you do to the world, it's still going to be very limited. The needs of the world are enormous, and what you and I can do as individuals or even as organizations is still very limited. And it's also going to be temporary. Which is not to say we shouldn't do anything. We should continue to do good to the world, but recognize the limitation of that. But also recognize that if I can change here, then the world will change for me, and even my capacity, my ability to help the world will also improve. Verse 19. Tapam yahamaham varsham nigrunnam yutsrujami cha amrutam chaiva mrityuscha sadasachaham arjuna. I give heat, I restrain and let loose the rain. I am immortality, I am death, I am manifest and unmanifest also, O Arjuna. Again, all the action that we see, all the movement that we see is nothing but filled with God's presence. God gives heat. Well, we are experiencing it now. And it's kind of a little bit welcome, so long as it doesn't go very high after the brutal winter that we had. And let loose rain, which God did 2 days ago in Houston and Oklahoma, in that area. So we know. And sometimes, even when it's a rainy season, there may not be rain. That's when the rain is restrained, and God restrains. In other words, all of these cosmic events and natural, the cycle of the seasons, everything happens due to God's presence. In other words, everything is filled with God's presence. I am immortality, that is, I am life, I am death, I am manifest and unmanifest. I am present in a very gross universe, I am present in a very subtle universe. You know that there are things which are gross, visible, tangible, there are things which are intangible, and yet they are there. So we don't see, say, a chair or a table is manifest, it's very tangible. But joy and sorrow are very real, but we can't see them the way we see a table or a chair. That is what is meant by manifest and unmanifest. In other words, in everything, in all objects, people, and in all actions, God is present. Clear up to this point? The summary is that God is present in everyone and in everything. Now, what about those people who don't make any effort to see the presence of God everywhere? And I would suspect majority of the people are like that. Only a few people may read about this in the Gita and text like this and kind of feel it's a good idea and may not do anything about it. But some of us who feel, say, okay, now I'm going to make a conscious effort to try to see that the person in front of me is not just a human being. That behind that visible person, there is a deeper truth. And that deeper truth is one with God. Just as behind this visible person, your own being, you are not just a creature with flesh and bones and blood and brain. That's the materialistic view. That, well, it's only at some point from matter, life and consciousness emerged, and then when everything goes, it goes, then nothing there. That's a materialistic view. The Gita's view is different. The Gita's view is that behind this very visible, tangible human being, there is a deeper truth, there is a deeper reality. And that deeper reality is one with God. Now, very few people make conscious effort to think about it this way. Most people don't. But that doesn't mean most people are bad. Most people are good. And like everyone, they want to be happy. And in order to be happy, they may do a lot of good things. They may do. Everything that we see as good actions, they may do, but not with the idea of seeing God in everyone, but doing good because, oh, this then will make me happy. Here and hereafter. We know that if we do something good, it makes us happy. But also if we believe that, well, if I do good things, then I'll go to heaven. And heaven is, of course, it's like if there's a little bit of happiness in this world, in heaven is even much more. It's like the 5-star or 10-star compared to this world. So some people may do good work with the desire to go to heaven. And they will go to heaven. So they are not really seeing God everywhere, but they are good people doing good things to reap the results. And they are described in next verse, number 20. Traividyamam somapa puta papa yadnairištva swargatim prarthayante te punyamasadya surendra lokam ashnanti divyan divideva bhogan. The knowers of the Vedas, purified from sins by drinking the soma juice and worshipping me with sacrifices, pray for access to heaven. They, having attained the meritorious sphere of Indra, experience in heaven celestial enjoyments of the gods. So the knowers of the Vedas means those who have studied the Vedas, studied the scriptures, or heard about it, learnt about it, purified from sins by drinking the soma juice, means the prasada. Every worship that you do, every ritual that you do, there will be offerings made, and that offering then becomes a prasad. And devotees believe that if you eat prasad, then it purifies your heart. It removes sins and purifies your heart. That is why before eating every food, we try to make an offering, mental offering to God. Then whatever we eat becomes prasad. And that can be done not just at home, wherever you eat. Even if you go to a restaurant, you need not say your prayer aloud. Others will wonder, but mentally, you can still say, even in a restaurant, you can say your prayer mentally and then eat food. Then even that food will become prasad. So devotees of God always eat prasad. Similarly, work itself can be another offering. So the work that you do, if you make it as an offering to God, then the results of work will be the prasad. So prasada will purify us from all sins. Pray for access to heaven. These people, as I said, are not necessarily trying to see God in everyone. They want to be happy here, now, and happy after death as well. So they go to heaven, having attained the meritorious sphere of Indra, some higher loka. There are many lokas described in the text. Indra loka, Surya loka, Brahma loka, kind of various categories of heaven. Experience in heaven celestial enjoyments of the gods. So more enjoyment than that we get here. Verse number 21. So how long? So the heavens, the Vedanta heavens are unfortunately are not permanent places. You can't go there and stay there permanently. So that's kind of sad. On the other hand, the good news is that the Vedantic hells are not permanent places either. But that's a good news. So no matter where you go, here or there, neither of them is permanent. And so what happens? That's described in verse number 21. Tetam bhuktva swargalokam vishalam kshine punye martyalokam vishanti Evam trayi dharma manuprapanna. Gata gatam kama kama labhante. Having enjoyed the extensive heavenly sphere, when their virtue is exhausted, they enter the mortal world. Thus, those who take refuge in the religion of the Vedas, desirous of enjoyments, go and come. So this is very important. So there is such a thing as heaven. People who are desirous of heaven will go to heaven, but you have to come back. It's like if you have, say, booked your room in some very fancy hotel in Bahamas or in Hawaii. So you booked it for, you are going for a long vacation, you booked a room for 3 months, and then you really go and have a good time. And 3 months is a pretty long period, and so you almost kind of settle down there. But then when it's the last day, you'll find a slip from under your door. It's like, okay, now time to go. You can't stay there permanently because you are booked for only 3 months. And you are booked for only as much as how much you are paid for it. If you are paid for 3 months, then you are booked for 3 months and you have to leave after 3 months. Exactly in the same way, the good work that we do, the punya that we do, is the payment. The meritorious deeds are the payment to enter into the I don't want to call heaven a hotel, but it's like it's to stay in heaven. You have to pay for it. Nothing. One thing, remember, nothing is free, neither in this earth nor in heaven. Nothing. Even if you hear about some free downloads or free things, you know it's not free. It's actually more dangerous because you don't know in what form you are paying them. At least if you pay, you know exactly what you are giving. But all this free stuff that you get, no matter from where, you are paying for it in some form. So in life, and a very important lesson, nothing is free. Same thing with regard to heaven, not free. You are pay for your heavenly stay through the punya, the good work that you do. And no matter how much good work you have done, it is still a very limited entity. And so you will go to heaven, you will have all the fun, all the enjoyments there. But someday in your heavenly apartment, you'll find a slip from under the door. So, okay, now time to take birth again. And that's how then you go and you come. So 2 things, major things that we saw today. First, the explanation about what does it mean to practice knowledge sacrifice, seeing the presence of God in everyone, in everything, in every activity. The more we are able to do this, the closer we go to our spiritual ideal, and then that would be a worship in itself. A lot of people don't do it that way, but they are good people. They do good work with the desire to enjoy happiness here and after death. They will go to heaven. Depending on how much good they have done, they will stay in heaven, have lots of enjoyment, but after that good is exhausted, they have to come back and continue, take birth again in this world of mortality. Okay, so we will stop at this point, but if you have any comments or questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you. Swami, I'm sorry, I just didn't hear well the very last line you told, that for them desire for heaven, enjoyment will go. For whom?
Say that again.
The very last, I don't know how to say, phrase we discussed. So for somebody, desire to go to heaven, for heavenly enjoyment, it will go. For whom? Who will work selflessly for whom? No? I didn't understand something.
No, I'm not clear what you're asking.
There is some sort of people who understand probably how to live according to truth. So
According to?
Truth.
Okay.
Truth.
Yeah, yeah.
For them, desire for heavenly enjoyment will go.
Right.
Do you understand, right?
Right.
So for whom? For whom? What sort of people? For
People who see the presence of God everywhere.
Thank you so much.
If you're seeing the presence of God everywhere, then you wouldn't want to go somewhere. Because seeing the presence of God itself gives so much joy, then what other joy are you looking for? Yeah, that's the idea.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So Swamiji, this is where the enlightenment comes in, that then you don't have to go back and forth?
Yep. So we don't, that's a good this thing. So the Gita is not saying everyone should do this. Gita is simply stating the facts as they are. If you want to come back, if you don't mind, you say, well, I don't mind a temporary stay in heaven. A temporary stay in heaven is better than no stay in heaven. So I will go and I'll come back again. So if somebody doesn't mind coming back, then they don't have to try to see God everywhere. They don't have to try for moksha. They go and come. But just one caution, that when I come back, I really don't have much choice about where and in what state I'll come back. And if I come back, it may not be, if my present situation is kind of more or less okay, there is no guarantee that next time I come back, I will again come back in a more or less okay situation. And so that's a little bit of a gamble, so to speak. So some people love gambling. They say, well, okay, I don't care. Even if I come next time as a lobster, I don't mind, and that's okay. Then but some people and if we recognize that we have come back like this billions of times in the past, then we say, well, what's the big idea, going and coming? And the opportunities we have to become free as a human being, we will not have if we come as somebody else. Or even if you come as a human being and come in such a difficult, challenging circumstances where even the physical survival is threatened, where is then the privilege and even the leisure to study the Gita? And so if we have that privilege now, if our immediate needs about food, shelter, and clothing are met, only then do we have, it's really a leisure in some ways. For those people who are hungry, who are homeless, who are not able to protect themselves against heat or cold, where are they going to get a copy of the Gita and study it? It's not even in their mind. It's like it's a survival. Now, if our present situation gives us the chance to be able to think of these higher things, we must make the most of it, because there is no guarantee that a future birth will be equally favorable. That's the idea.
Maharaj, since the karma phala is not in our hand, can we consciously...
What do you, karma phala is in our hand because it's your karma.
Can we consciously say that, no, I don't want that result? But then, since many things happen without us being even conscious of it, if I do some action, there is a result for that. What is that result is not in my hands. So the same thing should apply even to a good action that I do. So how is it possible that we consciously not want it? And
good question. The rule is this: if you have done something good, you have the freedom to not want it. If you have done something bad, you do not have the freedom to not want it. It's a little bit like this. Suppose I do some crying. I am going to be punished for it. If the cops catch me and there is a trial and I'm going to punish, I can't say, I don't want it. No, listen, whether you want it or not, you did it, you got to. On the other hand, if I do something good and I'm going to be rewarded for it, I'm going to be given a prize for it, then I can say, you know what, I don't want the prize. No one can force you to receive a reward, but they will force you to receive a punishment. You don't have a freedom to refuse a punishment. You have a freedom to refuse a reward.
So is it just a mental thing? In this case, for instance, there is a good action that is performed and so someone does a good action, and is it just a mental feeling that no, I don't want anything of it, and will that alone be sufficient to not get the reward?
it can happen sometimes. Sometimes one may begin doing some action with the desire to say, oh, I hope this will make me happy, or this will give me a promotion, or blah, 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 anything. And then while you're doing it, in the course of doing it itself, sometimes you'll say, you know what, I really don't care what happens. I'm just doing it because it's a good thing to do, or I enjoy doing it. So it's possible that you may begin something with a desire, and midway that desire may leave. Or in midway you say, even if it comes, I don't want it. Or whether it comes or not, I don't care. It's possible for it to happen that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Maharaj, I'm just going back to his question that, is it that good action, bad action, result will happen no matter what? But it's up to us, the detachment. Like like you said, if I do something wrong, punishment will come. If I do good, reward will come. Mm-hmm. And even though I say mentally that I do not want, actually I'm accepting that, and then I'm saying I don't want. So is it the detachment? Because if I'm saying that I do not want punishment, but I'm getting it no matter what. Exactly the same way, even though mentally I'm saying that I don't want any, praise or anything, I'm just doing work for work's sake. Mm-hmm. And reward will come. So it's all about the detachment. Or because if I'm detached with the both action, it will not affect me. Is it?
Yes, no, that's a good point. But what I'm saying is that if I do something bad, detachment is not enough. If I do something bad, then I say, okay, I'm detached now. I don't want punishment. That won't work. But if I do something good, and then I'm detached, see, the reason is this. What is the problem with fruit of action is that it is invariably going to lead me to rebirth, either heaven or here. So even good work, even to experience the happiness of good work, I have to take birth somewhere. So it's possible, suppose I have not done anything bad, but I've done just good work, and I will be born for it. I will be reborn for it. So it's possible now, by that time I have generated enough vairagya or detachment to say, I don't want. I've done a lot of good, but I don't want it. So it means then I won't have to be reborn to experience that result. But you cannot develop that detachment after doing something bad. That's what I'm saying. It's like someone does something bad, but afterwards says, oh, I shouldn't have done it. And now I'm detached from it, but no. But then you have to, that's the idea.
But at the same time, when I'm getting the reward, I'm accepting, but I'm detached. I'm accepting that I made a mistake and I'm getting punished, and I'm detached. So in that case, what's going to happen?
No, that's the thing. If a person has done something bad, it's not just saying I'm detached. The person will not be able to practice detachment. It won't happen. Because to practice detachment, you need a certain amount of mental strength and clarity, And that won't happen until the mind has become pure enough. And if I've done something bad, the mind has not become pure enough. So I will not be able to develop detachment.
Swamiji, I think many of these phrases say that see God in everything. Especially some of the bad things happening in the world. For example, the activities or any video comes up on the news. How do we react to that? Do we want to go and see what's happening and how we can see that guy or somebody? For example, there is a video where somebody is killing. So how do I react? Whether I want to go and see it and try to see God in that, or try to avoid looking at them? What should be my reaction to that?
Well, the reaction is, of course, you're going to be, it's a terrible thing. If it's possible for you to go and stop it or help in that situation in some way, you should definitely go and do that. So seeing God, thing is this, by seeing God is really meant what makes anything possible in this world. Because if you feel, well, no, God can't be doing that. Okay, agreed. But then who is doing it? Someone is doing it, right? And you can say, well, God had nothing to do with it. Then it's like, well, there are things happening over which God has nothing to do. God cannot do anything about it. Then it conflicts with the idea that God, everything happens through God's will. You see, so then because there is inner contradictions. So when you say seeing God in that, doesn't mean that God is somehow tainted by some terrible things happening. It's a little bit like in the sunlight. Some wonderful things happen in the light of the sun, and some terrible things happen in the light of the sun. And you'll say, well, is the sunlight responsible for it? No. But a lot of these things wouldn't have happened if it had been like pitch dark. So the sunlight was necessary for both of these things to happen. So you are seeing the light, but the light itself is not affected by the good or bad things that happen in it. So when you say seeing God in everything, it shouldn't really be a problem, because it is not to say that God is responsible for this. God is responsible neither for the terrible things that happen, nor for the good things that happen. So why do we have only difficulty seeing God only in these very bad things? Well, we should have difficulty in seeing God even in good things. The reason we don't have is because in our mind, God is like good. But if God is good, then we are stuck with the problem of then what about the bad? And then you have to invent a devil to take care of it, because God has nothing to do with it. So what the Gita's explanation is, in reality, God transcends both good and bad. God is beyond good and bad. But it's God's light or God's presence that makes everything possible, good and bad. But God is not affected, or God is not responsible either for the good or bad. So good and bad is really what good karma, bad karma, good results, bad results, joy and sorrow, all this duality. Rest of us who are ignorant, we are responsible for all this. God simply is present. The presence of God makes everything possible. But God is not affected, neither affected by any of these things, nor responsible for any of these things. Actually, in one verse, which will come later, I think, in Krishna says, and that's words which is not very often quoted, he says that na datte kasyachit papam na chaiva sukritam vibhuhu ajnanena avritam jnanam tena muhyanti jantavaha. Na adatte kasyachit papam. I don't accept the papa of anybody. I don't accept the sins of anybody. Na chaiva sukritam vibhu. Sukritam means punya. I don't accept anybody's punya, I don't accept anybody's papa. Ajnanena avritam jnanam. Ignorance has covered knowledge. Tena, by that, jantavaha, all creatures, all beings, muhyante, muhyanti, all people are deluded because knowledge is covered by ignorance. God is simply present. God neither is responsible for your punya nor papa. God doesn't want your punya or papa. God doesn't want anything. So it's our limited vision that associates God with God is good, God is love, God is kind, which is true. But if you kind of limit God to that, then we have a major problem like, what about evil? What about suffering? What about hatred? And then you have to find somebody responsible for it. So that duality is omitted by the Gita and Vedanta by saying God transcends all duality. Is that okay?
Okay, thank you.
So, Swamiji's question I had before this discussion was, how come it's difficult to see God in certain people? But based on what you've described, we have this notion that God is only good. Therefore, if I see something bad, in my notion of God, I have trouble saying, oh, there's God there too. But what you're saying is, I'm misunderstanding God.
Yeah, I mean, it's like this. It's if you're passing by a beautiful garden with some very fragrant flowers, and you're not really in the garden, you're kind of passing by it, but the wind is blowing. So that wind brings beautiful fragrance. And you say, this is such a beautiful breeze and such fragrance. And then you go further down and there is some kind of, it's like a garbage dump and like terrible things are there. And then the wind blows all those things to you. And you say, it's so terrible. It's like, now, is the wind responsible for it? No. The garden has different things, the garbage dump was different. But the wind carries both. So the carrier is the wind, but the wind itself is not responsible for either of them. It's a kind of a little crude analogy for everything comes from God, good and bad, everything. But God is not really responsible, just like the wind is not responsible. Okay, last question. We are tying this thing, yeah.
Excellent question. I just remark it. It doesn't mean that we need to hug a tiger, right?
Huh?
It doesn't mean that we need to hug a tiger. So still we have our ability to discriminate, and we need to protect ourselves.
We can hug a tiger if we are a tiger ourselves.
Yes. So I mean
tigers can hug among themselves.
No, I just follow line from Krishna. He told you don't have to.
Right.
Yes.
As human beings, we can hug other human beings, but don't have to hug a tiger. Okay, that's it. All right, good. So we'll continue next week when we meet. We'll begin with verse number 22. Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhur Muhu. We bow down to Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother. On Sunday, we will have Antar Yoga as usual with music, readings, and then followed by a birthday celebration for everyone born in the month of May. So, anyone in your family or among your friends are born in May, bring them along. We'll have a big celebration on Sunday. Next Wednesday, we'll continue with the study of the Gita, and on Tuesday and Saturday, our Aarti and meditation will also continue as usual. So you're welcome for these programs. Let's conclude with a prayer now on page 3 of your books. Oh. May the Divine Being, who is the Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, the Great Spirit of the Native Americans, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May we be granted strength, freedom, and clear understanding. May we learn to see God in our own hearts and in everyone around us. May God bless us all and fill our hearts with gratitude, grace, and love. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.